the thing that we haven't talked about is with all of the tariffs, with all of the financing questions, with all of the recession questions, short-term rates, long-term rates, the one thing that we haven't sufficiently talked about, it's not really in the press, but it needs to be talked about, is there is a tremendous amount of corporate debt that supports these businesses today. And you would say, well, if long-term rates go down, there's no real risk. But the tariff picture actually impacts revenues, right? Mm-hmm. And the problem with that is that there's a lot of companies that have debt covenants tied to revenue and EBITDA. And so this is what I spoke about at the beginning of January, which is the one risk that is uncontrollable is what happens to corporate debt. And could we see a wave of defaults and a wave of action? Nick, you may want to just play the clip and we can talk about what we can do about this. This was my pick for the best investment idea.
Go ahead. All right, here we go. What do you got, Chamath?
So let me preface this by saying that this is a pick that 92 times out of 100 goes to absolute zero. And 6 out of the remaining 8 times you make 10x your money. And then the final 2 times you make anywhere between 100 to 1,000x your money. This is a loser trade, but I would be long CDS. So what am I buying? I am buying insurance. I'm buying insurance using credit default swaps. I'm buying what's called protection, that there is no default event in 2025. I would like a little bit of an insurance policy in 2025 so that the men and the women that we have voted in have the chance to do their work in peace. I think that there is a small chance of some volatility next year. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope that this trade loses money. But if it hits, it will be the best performing asset of 2025. And I just want to be clear, this is not something I think will happen. It's not something I want to happen. But I do think that if you look back in terms of just the tonnage of dollars you can make and the massive risk asymmetry that it presents to you, when you look at the concentration of the S&P, when you look at just the total gross amount of debt that we have, when you look at rates spiking, all of these things say having a little insurance may not be a bad thing. It has hit. Nick, you can show the CDS graph. So this thing, for every $1 billion of risk you would have put on, every $1 billion that you put on would have cost you about $1 million. And that $1 million would have made you about $7 million in about 3 months.
Did you put it on?
I'm not going to comment on my trades, Jason.
Oh, okay.
But we talked about it off air already.
But if you did put it on, does that mean you're taking us all to Italy this summer?
No.
What's happening here? Are you getting a boat for us to record from the all-in yacht?
No, but there may be some boats for sale if this trade keeps going this way.
Oh.
Why is this important? The CDS actually represents the structural risk in the United States private economy, in the corporate economy. And so, Nick, if you just put it back on. So when you see these spreads blowing out, this is actually a very important warning sign. And this is actually a thing that I think Scott understands well, Howard understands well. I think they'll translate this to the president. If I have an opportunity to explain it, I will. But this is a really important market to pay attention to. This is what was the canary in the coal mine for the great financial crisis. This was the stuff that showed us that there was a big default event happening in the mortgage side of the market, but then that spilled over to the broader economy. And so the tariff picture and the recession picture will get played out in this chart. And I think it's something that folks can and should probably pay tremendous attention to, because I think now that this trade is in the money, the question is, I don't think we want this to happen, that 1 sigma, 2 sigma event where all of a sudden this trade returns 1,000x is really bad.